snake farmers in Hubei. He killed more than 70 poisonous snakes. 5 years later, he was suddenly confronted by a swarm of snakes. The farmer was killed instantly. Only 9 wounds were left on his body. This incident shocked the local newspaper, because after the farmer was buried, there were snakes around his grave, and from 1991 until today, every March and September, a large number of snakes come from all directions to dance around the grave, the last time they were at a party of some kind. It's a strange sight that doesn't happen for 100 years. Some say snakes are born with a grudge. What happened to the farmer was no accident, because according to those in the know, this farmer killed over 70 snakes. For 5 years, he's been hunted by snakes. That's why the snakes hunted the farmer after he was buried. That's why the snakes wouldn't let the farmer go. After the farmer was buried, the snakes still wouldn't let him go. But why are there so many snake hunters in the same situation? But the snakes chased him, and there have been many strange incidents like this one. Each one is an unsolved mystery. For example, on a merchant ship in the South Pacific, the passengers were too busy singing and dancing without realizing the deadly danger. The ship was inexplicably surrounded by snakes, while the steward was tidying up the stateroom. When the steward was tidying up the stateroom, he lifted the covers and a snake was aimed at him. Most of the ship's crew were unaware. Someone was washing up. A snake came out of a leak, biting him to death. Some passengers had better luck. They were attacked while using the toilet. One of the guys on the boat noticed something was wrong. He immediately warned everyone to protect themselves. But
师傅，别修了，这里有蛇！神经病啊！船上哪来蛇？
His name is Jianjun, because of his knowledge of biology, so he quickly discovered the strange phenomenon of the snakes. The species of these snakes were not the kind that would harm people, but why did they attack indiscriminately? They attacked indiscriminately. It turns out these snakes are all from an isolated island near the South Pacific Ocean. A year ago, a horrific incident occurred. This 18-year-old snake girl, she's completing her bar mitzvah, little by little. She's shedding her skin. He's now a young woman. The reason she's trying to become human is to reproduce, to turn humans into the offspring of snakes. Because since the birth of man, the snake race has been forced to kill. Not only do people dig up the bile for medicine, they've been transporting the meat to snake restaurants around the world to make a gourmet meal. My friends even made wine from the snakes for more than 10 years. But this is not enough to threaten. Wasn't enough to threaten the continuation of the snake family. What really caused the snake tribe to retaliate is that some unscrupulous businessmen started to develop the snake meat barbecue noodles. They threw tens of thousands of snakes into a pit and then burned them in a fire. They didn't realize that the pit was too big. They couldn't cover it with a flamethrower. The snakes at the edge of the pit climbed up the walls. They didn't wait for the people to react. They bit the men with the guns first, then the guards. One by one, tens of thousands of snakes spread across the island, and when the owner of the food company realized the situation, he ran off with his sister-in-law. The guards on the island had no choice, so they decided to abandon the island and run for their lives. But it was impossible to leave. A year has passed since then. The island has changed drastically, and a merchant ship, unaware of the situation, accidentally passed by here. It was instantly entangled by snakes at the bottom of the sea. The passengers on board were killed and injured, but no one knew. The snakes were here for revenge. Less than 10 passengers survived. They thought that by securing the cockpit, they thought they'd be able to escape the disaster. But what they didn't realize, on the cockpit glass, when people went on deck, they realized it was a huge python.
蛇。
Jianjun told everyone to take the speedboat to escape first. Then he stayed behind to break the back. He used an axe to chop up all the supply pipes on board. Then he spread petrol everywhere. When the python tied up the boat firmly, he fired a flare gun. Watching Jianjun and the python die together, people were saddened, but then a hand grabbed the boat. It turns out that the reason why Jianjun chose to use the flare gun to light up, in order to give himself time to run away. But what's the point of planning well? In the nearby sea, the only place to land is that isolated island. The living environment on the island is even worse than on the ship. Unfortunately, these people don't know that. A group of stranded tourists, a group of shipwrecked tourists have landed on a bizarre desert island. The island was filled with barnacles of all sizes. Not only did they look like chrysanthemums, and each one was wriggling, no one wanted to touch them. But who knows? this thing suddenly reacted and pulled a tourist right into the hole. It turns out these guys are naturally bloodthirsty, and the person who was attacked had a wound on his leg. That's why he was attacked. But where did these things come from? As we went deeper and deeper, the island encountered strange things. The trees in this forest they were always missing as we walked. People thought it was a hallucination, but only Jianjun thought it wasn't that simple. Sure enough, one of his teammates stopped to drink water. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. His upper body, in an unbelievable position, was penetrated by the hole. Looking up the wooden trunk, it turned out to be a giant spider above the trees. The trees that disappeared were actually his feet. People are shooting at it, but it's not doing any good. One of his teammates was hit again. He knew he wasn't going to make it until he pulled a grenade. And the spider's feet, that's what drove him away. The team didn't want to know what was going on. They just want to be rescued, to get out of this place. But to everyone's surprise, there's a human building in the middle of the island. And as they went inside, they discovered the truth about these strange creatures. Inside, there were corpses in chemical suits. There were also a lot of information on biological experiments. It turns out that this was once a biolab for a corporation, under the banner of developing snake food. Under the guise of developing snake food, they genetically modified creatures here. They not only imprisoned many kinds of snakes, they also destroyed them regularly. And then they made a mistake. The genes leaked out and caused a backlash. All the people on the island were killed, and the biggest snake king lost control. He not only occupied the island for a long time, and attacked humans, to avenge the oppression he's suffered for so long. This is the new film, Serpent of the Deep, which has just been released. Since the film is in theaters, that's all I can tell you. As for how the team will escape, what will the Unscrupulous Corporation pay? You'll have to watch it for yourself.